This grandma was left alone and crying on a cold street. The grandma was sitting on the side of the road. Her back was bent and her hands were shaking. She was holding a small dirty bag close to her chest. Cars were passing fast. People were walking by. No one looked at her. Her eyes were wet. Her lips were dry. She had not eaten since yesterday. She kept looking at every face, hoping someone would stop. But everyone walked away. She whispered softly, "Please help me." But her voice was too weak. The cold wind touched her face. She pulled her old shawl tighter. Memories filled her mind. Once she had a home. Once she had a family. Once she was loved. Now she was alone. The grandma slowly stood up from the cold ground. Her legs were weak and her body was tired. She held the wall to keep herself from falling. People were still passing by her. Some were busy on their phones. Some were laughing. Some looked at her for 1 second, then looked away. She walked a few steps and stopped. Her stomach was hurting from hunger. She had not eaten proper food for many days. She remembered the smell of bread from long ago. That memory made her eyes fill again. She walked near a shop. She stood outside and watched people buying food. Warm food. Fresh food. Food she could not afford. A man came out with bags full of groceries. She looked at him with hope. She opened her mouth to speak. But fear stopped her. She remembered how people shouted at her before. She remembered how someone pushed her away. So she stayed silent. She moved away slowly. Her shadow followed her on the road. She felt invisible, like she did not exist anymore. Her heart felt heavy, not only because of hunger, but because no one cared. The grandma walked slowly toward the park across the street. Her feet were swollen and every step caused pain. She reached a bench and sat down carefully. She placed her small bag on her lap and held it tight. Inside the bag were old photos and a small scarf, things that reminded her of a better time. She looked at children playing nearby. They were laughing and running freely. Their voices reminded her of her own children. She once brought her kids to parks like this. She once held their hands. She once felt important. Her smile slowly faded. Her children were grown now. They had their own lives. They had forgotten her. She tried calling her son last night. The phone rang many times. No one answered. She left a message, but no reply came. She stared at the sky. Dark clouds were moving slowly. She felt scared of the night. She had nowhere to go. No bed. No warm food. No safe place. Tears rolled down her face. She did not wipe them. She was too tired. She closed her eyes and prayed. Not for money. Not for comfort. But for someone to see her. The grandma opened her eyes when she felt drops on her face. The sky was turning dark and rain started falling slowly. People began to leave the park. Mothers called their children. Couples held hands and walked away. The bench beside her became empty. She tried to stand up, but her legs shook again. The rain became heavier. Her shawl was old and thin. It could not protect her from the cold water. Her hands started trembling. She walked toward the streetlight. Standing under it made her feel a little safer. Cars splashed water as they passed. Some drivers looked at her. Some did not. She hugged herself tightly, trying to keep warm. Her shoes were broken. Water filled them with every step. She remembered her old house, the small kitchen, the warm soup she used to make. She remembered her husband sitting quietly, smiling at her. After he died, everything changed. Her children sold the house. They promised to take care of her. But promises faded with time. The rain washed her tears. Or maybe her tears mixed with the rain. She could not tell anymore. She whispered again, "Please help me." But the rain swallowed her voice. The grandma stood under the streetlight for a long time. Her body felt numb from the cold. Her stomach growled softly. She placed her hand on it, trying to calm the pain. A small bakery was across the road. Warm light came from inside. She could smell fresh bread in the air. The smell made her feel weak. She had not eaten all day. She took a slow step toward the bakery. Then another step. Cars passed fast. Water splashed around her feet. She stopped at the edge of the road. Fear filled her heart. Not of the cars, but of being rejected again. She remembered the last time she asked for food. The angry face. The harsh words. The door closing. Her hands shook. She wanted to turn back, but hunger pushed her forward. She crossed the road slowly. Each step felt heavy. When she reached the bakery door, she did not go inside. She stood outside, watching people laugh and talk. She pressed her forehead against the glass, feeling the warmth on the other side. Her eyes filled with tears again. She whispered, "Just one piece of bread." The grandma stood outside the bakery for many minutes. People walked past her. Some looked at her clothes. Some looked at her face. Most did not look at all. The door opened many times. Warm air touched her skin. The smell of bread became stronger. Her legs felt weak. She held the wall to stay standing. A young woman came out holding a bag. She almost bumped into the grandma. She stopped and looked at her. Their eyes met for a moment. The grandma wanted to speak, but no words came out. Only tears. The young woman hesitated, then looked away. She walked a few steps, then stopped. She turned back slowly. She looked at the grandma again. This time really looked. The grandma felt scared. She expected anger or rejection, but the young woman did not shout. She did not push. She spoke softly. "Are you hungry?" The grandma nodded slowly. Her lips were shaking. Her pride broke in that moment. "Yes." The young woman smiled softly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a warm sandwich. She handed it to the grandma. The grandma took it slowly. Her hands were trembling. She could not speak. Her heart felt full. She wanted to cry and smile at the same time. She took a small bite. The bread was warm. The cheese melted in her mouth. The hunger that had tormented her all day started to fade. The young woman sat down beside her. She gave her water. She asked her name. The grandma whispered slowly, "I am Mary." Mary had not felt kindness like this in many years. She wanted to tell her story. She wanted to cry. She wanted to hug this young woman. The young woman listened quietly. Her eyes filled with tears too. She took Mary's hand. It was cold and dry. She rubbed it gently to warm it. The rain stopped slowly. The sky cleared a little. The street was still empty. But Mary did not feel alone anymore. She felt a small spark of hope, a feeling she had forgotten long ago. Mary slowly finished the sandwich. Her stomach felt full for the first time in 2 days. She looked at the young woman. Her eyes were shining with gratitude. She wanted to thank her, but words felt small. The young woman smiled again. She said, "I will help you get home safe." Mary shook her head slowly. She had no home now. Her children had their own lives. She had nowhere to go. The young woman nodded. She took Mary's hand. They walked slowly through the wet streets. Mary's old shoes made squishing sounds in the water, but she felt safe holding the young woman's hand. They reached a small car. The young woman opened the door. Mary hesitated for a moment, then got in carefully. The warmth inside the car was a shock. It felt like a small miracle. Mary's body relaxed. She leaned back in the seat. She could not believe someone had come for her. The young woman drove slowly. She did not ask questions. She only held Mary's hand and smiled. Mary closed her eyes. For the first time she felt peace in a long time. The car stopped in front of a small cozy house. The young woman opened the door and helped Mary out. Mary's legs were shaky, but she felt strong because someone cared. The house smelled warm and clean. Inside there were blankets and soft chairs. The young woman led Mary to a chair near the fireplace. She handed her a warm cup of tea. Mary held it with both hands, feeling the heat. It spread through her body and made her feel alive again. The young woman asked about her life. Mary whispered slowly and told her everything. How she lost her husband. How her children moved far away. How she had to live on the streets. How no one noticed her pain. The young woman listened quietly. She did not interrupt. She only nodded, her eyes full of empathy. Mary's heart started to feel lighter. She realized someone finally understood her. She realized she was not invisible anymore. The fireplace crackled softly. The rain outside had stopped completely. Mary leaned back and closed her eyes. She felt tears but also hope. For the first time in a long time, she felt someone loved her. Mary sat quietly by the fireplace holding her warm cup of tea. The young woman sat across from her and smiled gently. She asked Mary if she wanted something to eat. Mary nodded slowly. Her hands were still trembling, but her heart felt lighter. She had not felt kindness like this in many years. The young woman went to the kitchen and brought a plate of warm food. Soup, bread, and a small piece of fruit. Mary looked at it and tears filled her eyes. She had not eaten properly for so long. She took a small bite and then another, slowly savoring every flavor. It felt like a miracle inside her mouth. Her hunger faded, but her heart still ached from loneliness. The young woman sat back down and listened as Mary told her story. She spoke about her husband who had died long ago. She spoke about her children who were too busy to care. She spoke about the streets and the cold nights. She spoke about the fear of being ignored and invisible. The young woman did not interrupt. She only nodded and held Mary's hand. Mary felt something she had almost forgotten. She felt safe. She felt loved. She felt hope. The evening went slowly. The rain had stopped and outside the streets were empty. Inside the small cozy house, Mary felt warmth and comfort. She leaned back in the chair and closed her eyes. Her body relaxed. Her mind felt lighter. For the first time in a long time, she did not feel alone. She realized that kindness could still exist in the world. She realized that one person could change everything. She realized that she still had a chance to live and be seen. Mary finished her warm food slowly. Her hands felt steady for the first time in days. She sipped her tea and looked around the small cozy house. Everything was so clean and bright. The walls were painted soft colors. Blankets were folded neatly. There was a small lamp on the table. It felt like a safe place. A place where she could finally rest. The young woman smiled at Mary and said, "You are safe here." Mary felt tears run down her cheeks. She could not believe that someone cared so much about her. She wanted to hug the young woman, but her body felt weak. She whispered thank you over and over. The young woman held her hand and said, "You do not have to thank me. I only want to help." Mary thought about the streets she had walked alone. The cold nights. The hunger. The fear. She realized how much she had endured. She realized that she had survived against all odds. She realized that even though the world had been cruel to her, there were still good people. There were still moments of hope. There were still chances to feel loved. The evening grew darker outside. The fireplace crackled softly. Mary felt warmth spread through her body. Her heart felt lighter. She realized she could finally sleep without fear. She realized that tomorrow could be better. She realized that one small act of kindness had changed her life completely. For the first time, she felt a small happiness. For the first time in many years, she felt seen. Mary sat by the fireplace quietly. Her heart felt full but also heavy with memories. She looked at the young woman and said, "I have been alone for so long." The young woman held her hand and said, "You are not alone anymore." Mary felt tears rolling down her cheeks. She remembered all the nights she had cried on the streets. All the times she had begged for food. All the times she had been ignored. She whispered softly, "I never thought someone would care." The young woman smiled and said, "Sometimes we just need one person to see us." Mary realized how true it was. One small act of kindness could change a life. One person could make the world feel safe again. They talked for hours. Mary shared memories of her husband and children. She laughed softly at happy moments and cried at sad ones. The young woman listened patiently. She gave Mary water and more food. She wrapped a warm blanket around her shoulders. The night grew deep. Outside the house, the streets were silent. Inside the house, Mary felt warmth and love. She felt hope for the first time in years. She realized she could start over. She realized that even at her age, she could still find happiness. She realized that being seen and loved was the most important thing in the world. She closed her eyes slowly and whispered, "Thank you for changing my life." Mary woke up the next morning feeling warm and safe. The sunlight came through the window and touched her face. She stretched slowly and felt a small smile on her lips. The young woman brought her breakfast and sat with her. They talked quietly about small things and laughed softly. Mary realized she had not laughed like this in many years. She felt alive again. After breakfast, the young woman helped Mary clean herself and change into fresh clothes. Mary looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes looked brighter. Her face looked calmer. She felt like a new beginning. They walked outside together. The streets looked different in the morning light. Mary felt strong in a way she had forgotten. She realized she could walk confidently. She realized she could still live her life with dignity. She realized that even after pain and loneliness, hope could return. Mary held the young woman's hand and whispered, "Thank you again." The young woman smiled and said, "Always remember, you are never truly alone." Mary felt tears of happiness. She felt a warmth in her heart. She felt that life had given her a second chance. From that day, Mary promised herself she would never give up. She would help others when she could. She would cherish kindness. She would remember the feeling of being seen and loved. And she would live the rest of her days with hope and gratitude. The story ended with Mary walking down the street with the young woman by her side. Her head held high. Her heart full of hope. Her life forever changed by one act of kindness.